Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The People's View is a show sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. The committee meets every second Thursday at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to contact us, we have a website, nashuagop.org. And at the end of the show, you'll see some contact phone numbers or email addresses that you may want to send us your comments and recommendations. Thank you for listening in.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, and I welcome our Mayor Lozeau. Welcome here to The People's View.
Thank you.
We'd like to talk to you a little bit about what's happening. And of course, I guess the people will read about this in the newspaper tomorrow after we tape this. But you had a little activity this afternoon in downtown Nashua with the police department. And, And I guess that all cleared up, but that's a little bit of excitement in your busy day.
Well, I think it's fortunate that the police were able to get their arms around what the problem was as quickly as they did. And, that's one of the things we're fortunate about in this community is to have a
very good police department.
Great police department.
Yeah, they're very active, and I think they do handle their job very well from from my perspective anyway.
And we'll have to find out what's at the bottom of what it was all about.
Okay, good. But your day is full, I know. You're talking about a lot of different things. The budget is something that's working through with the aldermen now, and is that you see any real problem? Your target is keeping the cap on, right?
Well, the budget isn't done yet.
No.
So what you're seeing and the reason that you're thinking it's happening is because the school board is working on their budget. So what happens is the school board does their budget. They bring it to me. We talk about it. Becomes part of my budget. My budget includes all of the different city divisions and departments. And then from there, it's delivered to the Board of Aldermen, and their budget committee then starts to have their hearings. That's going to happen in May. That's our timeline for that. And so there's a lot of work going on right now within each of the different departments and divisions as they're putting together their budget. And yes, of course, we want to make sure that it, as always, comes under the spending cap.
And this all has to finish up by the end of June, or what?
End of June is what we like. It can go through the end of July if it has to. But, I mean, pretty typically we get a good 40 to 50 meetings in for the budget between May through June. And, of course, we have public hearing in there. And, of course, a lot of what's happening with the school budget right now, the aldermen and myself can certainly keep track of what's happening there, and they have their public hearing as well. So, and, of course, in Nashua, we're very unique. We have different boards that have different responsibilities for different parts of the budget. So it gets vetted quite a bit before it ends up
I imagine
getting to the alderman.
It gets into the details quite a bit.
It does.
So that'll keep you busy quite a bit.
It will.
Staff.
It will.
Which budgets are the biggest?
Well, the school budget is about half of the city budget. So that's probably the largest budget. And as you know, they came in a bit above where, well, they didn't. I should say that the superintendent brought to the school board a budget that was 5% increase over last year's budget. And so I know that they're working as diligently as they can to try to bring in a budget as close to what I've asked for as possible, because it makes it difficult for the other divisions and departments. Certainly the other large budgets are police, fire, public works.
Oh, speaking of the public works, then, how is the sidewalk project coming along? Is that something that's working almost complete?
Oh, no. We we have a limited season, of course, where that work can be done. So if we're lucky, we start in April sometime. Sometimes it's been later than that, but April. And then we wrap up September, October, November again if we're lucky. So we're really dictated by the weather, particularly during the project. You know, if it's a day like today, there's not a lot of sidewalk work getting done. So, you know, each season we do a little bit more. This year the plan is to start on Block 3. And we're going to work up the west side of Main Street this year. We have more challenges on the east side because of all the conduit that's under the
Oh,
sidewalks.
really?
So it creates just an awful lot of challenges. So we thought, you know, we might be able to get further if we stayed on the single side. And then also we have other things that are happening on the east side with the church, taking down some property and things like that. So, you know, the good part about us doing the work is, of course, we're able to be flexible and work with the different businesses. So I would anticipate this season and next will get us pretty close to being wrapped up.
Okay, and so there's Block 3, did you say?
Block 3 is where we're going to
Does
start.
that go down to Hollow Street or where?
No, so there's 5 blocks.
Yeah.
If we count, you know, City Hall is kind of like one block itself. But the Block 3 starts where You'll Love It Yogurt is, and comes that way, where Flagel Law Office, Gentle Dental, you know, that block right there, and includes the block that has Sconsis on it and Martha's. So that's Block 3.
I see, okay.
Block 4 begins at Alex Shoe, and then Block 5 begins at Persian Rug.
Okay. All right, at least I have a layout of, is that, I haven't seen that in the newspaper that way. Has that been described in the newspaper?
As blocks?
As blocks,
It
that
has,
blocks, yeah. Okay.
And you can always go on
Usually
the,
they try to show a map or something like that.
well, I think they've put the maps of the different blocks as we've taken on the blocks. But on the city website, on the homepage, there's a Main Street Sidewalk project that you can click on, and
Oh, then you can
you can
go
see all
through
the maps,
details.
the budget,
Good.
everything, including the tree work.
Well, we're looking forward to that, and I'm also looking forward to what you're going to be doing along the riverside. That's going to be, well, you're walking into the Broad Street project and everything. How is that timing coming along?
Well, you know, I think that it's coming along quite nicely. Our last 2 contracts just began their work. Oddly began probably, I'd say 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago. And they're doing the portion of the parkway that goes through the Baldwin Street Bridge area. And so they're working at that right now. That was targeted to be done in November. We're all hoping that they'll get it done sooner. E.D. Sweat won the bid for doing the Fairmount Street Bridge and the River Bridge. And so that work has begun now. They're working on sewer connectors and shoring up things and, you know, getting everything ready. You can't work on the Fairmount Street Bridge till you give the neighborhood back the Baldwin Street Bridge. So, I mean, it's progressing along nicely. Pennachuck Water has been in there, you know, changing out pipes and other things and changing connections and increasing the size of the main and things like that. So, you know, the project is going, you know, quite nicely. We're very pleased. The contracts came in below budget, which is always wonderful.
Always nice.
But I always hold my breath because, you know, a change order could come in.
I was just going to say, did they find anything that
Well, you know how things go. I
surprises?
mean, you know, again, you know, doing the sidewalk project with the public works staff
Yeah.
eliminates that uncertainty of a change order and the costs associated with it as it relates to labor and stopping work and that sort of thing. So we're hopeful that we won't have any of those on these contracts, but I'm sure that there'll be some change orders. Sometimes a change order isn't about money. It might be about timing or things like that. So we'll have to see and keep a close eye on it. But I think the project is being managed very well. And
Do you have any problem with that the pollution site that's adjacent to the Broad Street?
Mohawk Tannery or
Yeah.
Fimble Door? We have a couple of them.
The ones that's right along the Broad Street area.
Well, both of them
Both
are.
are,
So Fimble Door is one and Mohawk Tannery is the other. And certainly we have asbestos and other things there that we have to manage as we get through. I think the Mohawk Tannery site presents a wonderful opportunity for redevelopment. And that's one of the things that I think the Parkway brings to the table. along with the redevelopment in the mill yard and things like that. So
Redevelopment in what sense? What kind of buildings would you like to see there?
in the mill yard or in the Mohawk Tannery site?
Well, both. Let's talk about both of them.
Well, on the Mohawk Tannery site, I think that you could do a mixed-use development. That was something that was looked at many years ago when the Parkway looked like it was happening. I think what's important there is the access to that site needs to be from Broad Street and from the Parkway and not through the neighborhood. So I think a mix of residential and small commercial or retail that serves that general area, I think makes some sense. So I hope for that potential. I'm also, we've been talking about a piece of the Mohawk Tannery site that could be taken from the site and added to Mine Falls Park for pedestrian access to Mine Falls. We're hopeful that one of the bridges that we're taking down at Baldwin Street or Fairmount Street might be able to be put there across the river, and so you could have pedestrian access. One of the things that we're supposed to try to do as part of the Parkway is to reuse those historic trestle bridges. So we're hopeful we might be able to do that, and I think the neighborhood would really welcome an opportunity to be able to, again, pedestrian only, which is very important. And then as far as the mill yard, I think that the mill yard, this is an opportunity to really breathe some new life in there. So some of the businesses that have been in there are excited and looking at, what they can do. Other businesses have moved in there looking at the potential of what's to come. And if you make the mill yard something where people can understand how to get in and get out, I think that you'll see development happen naturally.
Is there going to, excuse me, is there going to be walkways on the side of the river for,
Well, there's the Riverwalk, and the Broad Street Parkway will have a sidewalk.
Okay, all the way up that way.
It'll have
right
a sidewalk
into
all the way through.
The park area.
Well, you'd get into the Mine Falls Park by going down Spine Road, which is in the mill yard.
Yeah.
So
you could, well, is you going to be able to walk across that bridge or not?
the river bridge?
Yeah, the river
Absolutely,
bridge.
yes.
Okay.
You'll be able to
So
walk.
that'll
As
be
a matter of
good.
fact, we put two little outlook areas on
yeah.
that bridge, so people can kind of step off the sidewalk and look out over the river from
But
either
not
side.
to jump in.
Well, let's hope not. That's not the, we would frown on that.
Well, I just remembered something that I saw where people obviously do that. If anything.
Well,
they
people
could-
do things like that, but
that's
I would be pleased to see fishing and that sort of thing maybe
Okay,
happening.
good. All right, good.
Photographs taken, things like that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's moving along fairly well.
It is.
And what other projects are going on within the city? I mean, we talked about.
Well, one of the big projects that's going on is the beginning of the East Hollis Street
Right.
roundabout. And so that work is trying to not just be about moving traffic, it's also looking at, we have a pump station for Pennachuck Water there, we have a pump station for wastewater there, we have stormwater. So it's trying to incorporate a lot of the challenges there into one solution. So soon that project will be going out to bid to see what people might be able to bring to the table for creative solutions. Aesthetics count, because that's a gateway into the city that hasn't had a lot of attention. It's more of a very congested area, and as you know, we've looked at the Crown Street site, and we have purchased that through federal funds for a park and ride, and maybe potentially in the future a rail station. So we're looking comprehensively at that whole general area. Renaissance is doing work along the Merrimack River. We would love to open up that riverfront. There's such an opportunity there to bring the public into it, to have maybe even a riverfront promenade where you could go there for a purpose, which I think would be pretty remarkable. So that's a
That would
really
be very nice down there.
yeah, I think so. It's a really big river. It'd be nice to have access with a boat. We've just put a new boat launch on the Riverwalk next to Front Street, where the
really?
Cotton Mill project is going on, where people can go with canoes and
know that.
kayaks and that sort of thing. They can walk right down, and that's been something people really want. So, as we open up our rivers to get more public attention, it opens up
Be
opportunities.
another San Antonio.
Well, I
Not
don't know.
quite.
I don't know about that, but I think
But
that
along that concept.
we're a remarkable city, and we have an opportunity to do so much more with what's here. And, over the years, a lot of progress has been made. And to be able to take some of those projects home over the finish line, it's just been my pleasure.
It's very interesting. I'm very pleased, and that's one of the reasons I moved to Nashua.
Good to hear.
From all the things that they had from
Where'd you
living
move
in
from?
Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
Oh, well, that was a long trip.
But I knew what was up here. Of course, I did it by way of Texas, but that's
Did you?
that is a long trip.
I bet.
But the railroad, you brought into the conversation, the railroad. I saw some preliminary numbers out there. It looks a little bit more favorable than it did a couple years ago.
It did. It did. I'm hearing that they're showing numbers that are higher than I think people expected. And so having an opportunity for that, I think, is a big deal too. You and I have talked about this before.
A number of times, yeah.
The real challenge with rail,
It is.
after building it is how do you pay to operate it? And I think we'll have to.
Do you still have interest with the MBTA as far as bringing something up to Pheasant Lane or that area?
I think there's a lot of interest from people to, particularly if we can pull off the Exit 36 South, which of course is another big project, right?
That's right.
The opportunity for Massachusetts and New Hampshire to work together to get federal funds to do a project like that would be, I think very possible. The opportunity to do something about the traffic on Spitbrook Road and Daniel Webster Highway is
Definitely.
really important. And so if we put a multimodal transit facility there for buses and trains, I think that's a real opportunity. And then, if that was the first stop, I think it would really show people what the demand would be.
Oh, definitely,
And depending
yeah.
on the demand, that takes some of the guesswork out of the costs of operating the system. And so, in a perfect world, it would pay for itself, but you and I both know that that's not likely to happen. But if we can do better than 50% of the fare box, if we can get closer to 75, I mean,
That would be the target.
right.
Yeah.
And think about our roads. Infrastructure continues to be our greatest challenge, not just in Nashua, but in every community, in the state, in the nation. Infrastructure, because for so long, when people look at cutting their budgets, you let things go.
Yeah.
And so when I came in, we had a list of things, all what I would consider infrastructure or assets, buildings and vehicles and all those things that allow you to get the work done. And part of that is certainly our sidewalks and our roads. And we need to find a way to get our arms around it. We've done that with our vehicles. We've done a fleet assessment. We have a capital equipment reserve fund that we've now funded properly so that, each year when those things come up, things are budgeted and you can do them. We've done the same with our buildings. We've taken care of our buildings and we've started a fund to be able to maintain our buildings. Now we need to look at our paving and see how do we manage, over 300 miles of roads, 765 lane miles. How do we get our arms around that?
Well, this winter is really giving you a challenge.
Oh, I'll tell you. And I don't think people really realize why it's worse. So it's a combination of, roads that get water under them, that forces the heaving that you see, but also our frost line is lower this year than we've seen it in, I think, as long as many people can remember.
Oh, yeah, I can see that in my backyard.
Yeah. And I don't think people really realize just how bad it is. And some of that will be mitigated when things warm up and asphalt, warms up and things like that. But others, we have a lot of work to do and a lot of repair to do. We fill the potholes. And
It's more than that, though, in some of the places, right? I mean, you're going to
it's a lot. It's a lot. There are some roads where we may have to look at reclaiming. There are some that we'll actually cut out and rebuild. And there are some potholes that can be filled in a normal way. But there are others, I mean, you can see that it's delaminating. So it's peeling right off the... So
I go over one every day.
well, so you, I'm sure, drive slow. And that's what I tell people. People say, I hit a pothole. If you're on your regular route, you know where they are. I mean, I drive West Hall Street every day.
Yeah.
Coming and going from work, and you know where they are. You just line your car up right, go slow.
It's the ones that surprise you that come overnight,
Right. Well, we do have our share of those too. Yeah, I mean.
But anyway, it is
can't
a
control
challenge.
everything,
It's a
certainly.
challenge. I
It
know
is.
that. And you're doing a good job overall.
Thanks. Thanks.
Maybe you ought to get the public works people out and Give them a party, or that's
Well,
not
you
it?
know, they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, this week you saw in the paper the conversation about plow drivers doing different things, but you know, overall, these guys, they work all year long and they have challenges all year long, and they're out there and they're plowing our streets, they're cleaning our streets, they're picking up our trash, they're building our sidewalks. You know, they're doing good work. And as you can imagine, more people call with a complaint
Oh, yeah.
than people call to say good job. But, you know, you'd be surprised. I get a fair amount of people that reach out to say, hey, you know, they went above and beyond the call of duty, or they were kind and respectful and went out of their way. But it's a, you know, it's a tough job. I can't think of any of the jobs in public works that I'd want to have. I wouldn't want to be out there picking up trash,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the crowded neighborhoods where it's not easy to do that. You know, I wouldn't want to be out there plowing our streets. You know, that presents its own challenges, particularly when you go, you know, 20 hours or 30 hours, you know, or back-to-back snow. I mean, it gets...
You all
So-
ready for the snowstorm coming?
Shh. You know,
Well,
think
is
about
that-
it. Snow is a four-letter word. I don't know if you're
I
allowed to
see.
say that on TV.
Well, let's hope it's the last one anyway for
Oh,
the year.
please, from your lips.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to talk about was the branding program that you have. And how's that coming along? I know you had some little stumbling along the way, but is it moving along all right now?
I don't think any project goes without a few stumbles
Well,
along the way, right?
That's probably true.
The sad part about this one is that it's one that could have been avoided if I would have really realized. And I just, you know, I didn't, and that's too bad. But it's you know, it was an initiative that came in, a resolution passed by the Board of Aldermen to do a joint project with the Chamber of Commerce. We each put about $50,000 on the table. It's really the driver behind it is an economic development tool that people can, you know, kind of rally around. And you see people using it. The Chamber, of course, used it as a partner, but other businesses are using it in their lingo and in some of what they're putting on their websites. The school department adopted the colors. You know, we're hoping to get the city website out and doing that. It was interesting this past last Friday, the Chamber of Commerce had its Eminence Awards business luncheon, and they had two women from Providence that came in to talk to us about the challenges that they had branding their community. And we had some similarities, but we also, we put a pretty significant advisory committee together that was made up of 25 people from the community that played a role in making decisions. We had focus groups all over the community, surveys that went out. I mean, North Star really did some good work that we'll be able to use for many things, not just this project. And then it went from there to now developing out that brand. Now, like every community, you have a challenge, you know, picking which one you like. And, you know, one of the things that I think everybody wanted to avoid is here's the list of all the ones, right? So that you could say, well, I like this one. And I could say, well, I like that one. And somebody else could say, well, I like that one. I mean, it's very subjective. And so when they narrowed it down to a couple and the majority picked the one we have, that's the direction that we headed. And, you know, I think when I first heard Dare to Begin, I thought, well, what about all the people that already began here? Right? I was a little worried
right, yeah.
that the people that built this community to what it is. But then when you start thinking about what they did and what the people did before them, and you took away trying to make it sound like it didn't count for what already happened, and it wasn't intended to be a threat. It was intended to remind people that we're a community full of innovation
That's
that
right.
has taken risks and done things. I mean, even back to the start, you know, in the 1600s, when people came here and decided to try to build something between two rivers. I mean, that was a risk. And time you look at things and decisions that have been made in the community. I mean, back when we were losing manufacturing back in the 40s and 50s, and people like, you know, Governor Hugh Gregg and you know, other families in this community came together and developed a strategy on how to diversify the community and have the auto village go over here and do this with downtown and this with manufacturing. And because of that risk-taking that they did, I mean, even the Nashua Airport, I mean, these are all things that people went out on a limb and dared to do. You know, so if you really think about it that way, it grows on you.
Yeah, I thought of it more or less that you're just continuing to try to improve. You're
Exactly.
reaching for more and more.
Yeah, and new people come,
That's
you
it.
try it.
Right.
You know, this is a good place
Right.
to do this work. So, you know, I think it'll catch on. I think it'll take some time before it becomes pretty common for people. But it's fun to listen to people play off of, you know, Dare to, you know.
Well,
so.
I see a lot of new things that are coming up, and you know, very happy to see and the development, the new businesses that you're bringing
it's
into the
huge.
city, the development of Spitbrook up there on the hill. That's going to be something up there
It is.
too.
I mean, there's been, you know, as you know, and we've talked about before, you know, we had the greatest recession since the Great Depression. I mean, we really have. And through all of that, you know, the city has a AAA rating. There were no bad headlines about layoffs and huge cuts. And so businesses that were able to grow during those times wanted to be here. And when you look at what happened in the state, you know, Nashua maintained most of its strength and got new strength in here, new companies coming here. I mean, we have some pretty remarkably interesting companies here growing and doing business and bringing jobs here. And that has been consistent. So that's, you know, that's not by accident. That's people seeing what we have to offer because people look. They want to know, you know, how's the community doing? Are they financially sound? Do they have good schools? Are there good neighborhoods? Is it safe? You know, is it a place I want to be? The same sort of thing that you looked at when you decided if you wanted to live here. So you're doing, we have businesses that do both things. Do my employees want to be here? And where do they want to be, right? Are they going to want to live here?
Yeah.
We have a lot of companies that have come from Massachusetts, and you know, for a long time we were really trying to work on retention. How do we help keep the businesses here? Now we're able to start working a little bit more on recruitment. Not that we didn't do that, but it was really first to hang on to what you have.
Right.
You know, because you don't want to abandon people and go, oh, I hope you can make it. We're going to go get some new companies, you know. So, I mean, we really
Well, you
have
need
done
that.
some
That's
great
going
things.
to also attract new companies too. If
is.
they show, you know, you show support of the ones you have here.
Right. And people, I think, you know, people talk more about negatives than positives.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. You know, my husband and I owned restaurants for many years. You could feed 300 people a night, and, you know, 299 of them left happy.
Yeah.
If one left unhappy, more people would know that that person left unhappy than the 299 that left happy. It's just kind of human nature. So it's hard sometimes to remind people, you know, that there are these great things going on. But I think the positive is what attracts people. The negative is what keeps people busy, you know, in the, you know, scheme of conversations or some of that stuff. But the positive things are what people look at Nashua for and say, boy, they're doing great there.
Well, what great things are going to happen in the next year?
Well, let's see. Hopefully we'll get the parkway pretty much squared
Yeah.
away. We'll have a solid plan, I think, for the East Hollis Street roundabout that we talked about. We'll have a balanced budget again. You know, I'm
That's
convinced
good.
of that. Progress again on our sidewalks. I'm hopeful we'll have some kind of paving infrastructure plan that we can bring forward. I don't know what it'll be. I'm hoping to launch a community initiative on safe sidewalks for winter
There you
because
go.
we certainly can't do it
Oh,
all.
yeah.
And
That's
it'd be
the
nice to
problem.
try to launch some kind of campaign to engage the
Get
community
people to
in
do
that.
their own,
Right,
if possible.
right, which is what we really should be doing. I mean, you can't be a community if you sit back and watch.
Well, thank you very much. We're running out of time. But we'll
Imagine that.
We're going to have you back and sometime around the end of the budget time.
Okay,
Hear
sure.
how things are going. Okay?
Sure. You know where to find me.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, if you're always in your office, no, you're not. You're always
No,
around every place.
No, but I'm not hard to find.
Okay. Well, thank you again.
You're
very
very
much.
welcome.